The impudence, the audacity, the unmitigated gall of those knuckleheads of liberty podcasters, daring to voice opinions outside the mainstream of accepted thought. Listen if you dare. It's angry, it's funny, it's even sometimes sad, but it's always based on freedom and justice, as you will see. Here's our host, Jason McPhee.
Welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty. We're coming at you on August 31st, 2022. Boy, I tell you, it's amazing that we haven't had a complete collapse yet with this Biden administration. We'll talk about homelessness, some of the fruits of that maybe a little bit before the end of the show. But before we get into any of the topics, let me introduce you to our panel. In our upper left-hand corner, we have Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. In our upper right-hand corner, we have our screaming eagle of freedom, Tim Everett. He is a pilot in the state of California. My name is Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host today. So let's jump right into the topics. Boy, I tell you, whether it's abuse of power in one way or another, it just seems like everything with Biden is just crazy. And one of the things we just found out on Joe Rogan's podcast was Mark Zuckerberg was there, and he said that before the election that got Biden into office, the FBI came and warned him to be vigilant of essentially Russian propaganda. So just before the leaked that the laptop that the FBI was holding.
Yes, and they had it, yes.
Exactly. So, I mean, these guys knew that this was coming out with all kinds of damaging information about Biden. And, and then they're warning social media companies like Facebook to treat these as propaganda. And we recently, too, the FBI has just acknowledged now that they've had some issues with bias because they actually had an agent that was recently forced out over this last week who was, I guess, leading some of these efforts. And it turns out that, they've said that he was doing this in extremely biased format. I'm not sure of all the details yet, as this story just came out about a day or two ago, but essentially Trump is now using this to really hammer home the fact that in his mind the election was stolen. So and with the help of the FBI. So has the FBI gone rogue? And who watches Biden's Watchmen here? What do you guys think about this?
Yes, the FBI have gone rogue. There's no doubt about that. Now, you know the whole problem here. The hands of the FBI are turning up in too many dirty things. Look at what have happened lately. The Russia collusion stuff, they were involved with that. The Whitmer fake kidnapping, they were involved with that. Now we have this Mark Zuckerberg thing about the FBI coming to them to warn them, to quote unquote, to warn them about Russian misinformation. So and what is worse about this particular one is that they knew it was not Russian misinformation coming. They knew it was Biden's son's laptop. They knew all of that because they had the laptop with them. So they went to Zuckerberg and they probably went to Twitter too. We don't know that yet, but they probably went to Twitter too and told them about this thing. So you see what is happening here? This is censorship by the government, okay? Twitter and Facebook is doing the dirty work of the government. So this is censorship. This is a violation of all our rights that is going on here. And the hands of the FBI are turning up in too many dirty places. Look at this raid that they had on a former president. Now, as I've said before, I am not here to defend Donald Trump, but I'm here to defend an American citizen, okay? Up to now, they have not shown us any serious probable cause as to why they had to raid Mar-a-Lago. The Presidential Records Act, which is what initially they had claimed, is not a criminal statute. So they cannot use that to say they had to carry out this big raid. 30 FBI agents had to run into Trump, to run into Mar-a-Lago to save something, to save some sort of classified information, when the President of the United States is the ultimate decider of what is classified and what is not. So
Leon,
go ahead.
Leon, are you telling us you're skeptical of the Biden administration and the Ministry of Truth?
No, why would I say that, Jason? Me? Me, I would say that. Of course, I'm skeptical. These people are out of their minds, and the FBI, the hands of the FBI, is becoming increasingly dirty. It's very disturbing.
Well, that's well, to get us back about the whole Twitter and Facebook thing, and let's suppress the information that voters might find interesting, at the least. In spite of my agreement with everything Leon's saying, I have to say to my liberal friends, my progressives that like to progress, they want to see society progress into the utopian future. And to them, those enthusiasts of top-down central planning, I would like to tell them that when they say that, oh, but Facebook has a right to suppress whatever information they want because they're working under the free market and it's their decision. And so there we have to honor that, especially you libertarian, you. No, we have found out now that it's not free market at work. It is directed by the an arm of the federal government that you normally don't want to get in hot water with.
Exactly.
Exactly. And okay, they're the ones out there flexing their federal muscle in suppressing information through its outlets. I mean, what do you think? Is there suddenly some federal news information source, and that they're the ones cracking down on information? No, it's all these private sources of media, whether it's old or new media, makes zero difference. That's who's disseminating information, and it's them that have to be suppressed by the government, not some, what's the one in Russia or in the Soviet Union? What was the name of that? Pravda. We do not have Pravda here in the United States, okay?
So we'll give Biden 4 more years and we might have it.
Yeah, exactly.
But at the bottom line here, when social media, Facebook, Twitter, and all of these people, or Google or whoever it is, when they are suppressing information, when they are censoring at the behest of the government, it is a violation of our rights. Okay? They are no longer in the free market and they are a private company. Yeah. They are no longer a private company. They are doing the dirty work of the government.
Well, they still may be a private company, but they're being coerced by the government. So
yes, this is the thing.
True. Yeah, this is the thing that's important, and this is exactly what I'm saying. So the two of us are saying the same thing, Leon.
Yes, indeed.
Once again. Surprise.
Well, and the crazy thing too is, I mean, this wasn't just social media kind of hiding or suppressing the information, I guess, from their users. They're literally trying to shut down other news organizations, because it was the New York Post that broke this story. Yes. And then they were just removed from some of these platforms. They had their stuff shut down because they were trying to tell their story in their reporting. So it's really scary stuff. And especially in light, too, of the Biden administration trying to start this ministry of truth, essentially, through Homeland Security, which just ought to scare the heck out of everybody that this is the kind of direction that they're moving. I mean, it's absolutely Orwellian. Yes. Well, I guess speaking of just terrible Biden policy, boy, I tell you, he is trying to now essentially pay for votes in the guise of paying for student loans. And maybe we could get up the image for this next story. So you practically have to be living in a cave over this last week to not know that Biden has said he is going to use the power of the executive office now to forgive at least $300 billion in student loans. Just absolutely astonishing. I know the Democrats have been flirting with this for quite a long time. But just the idea that they used the powers of the executive office after Nancy Pelosi had come out less than a year ago, I believe, and said Biden didn't have the power to do this. And so that's the top Democrat in Congress saying he didn't have the power to do this. And now, of course, they're all on board with him doing it. It's whatever he feels like doing. But it's funny what they're using to justify it. Apparently, is the HEROES Act that was put in by the Bush administration, I believe. And
Yes.
this
Yes.
is the scary stuff of unintended consequences. So, conservatives, we just ask you to sort of wake up, just because it's not a Democrat. If they're pushing more things through government, be skeptical. I mean, they're literally using this now to essentially one of the biggest giveaways to Democrat voters you could have ever imagined.
Right.
And they're using stuff that they're claiming you guys gave them the authority for. So I don't know. What do you guys think about all this stuff?
I think it's a get out of jail free card, and I don't think Biden will ever have this overturned in a million years, especially after reading that article, which I think, got into the, well, what could happen in the future. And the main thing is that, the federal government loves it when the executive takes on more power, and they always have. They've shown a willingness to support it, all three branches, and they just love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. Oh, unless it's the other guys, of course, that are doing it. But, the bottom line is he'll get away with this, and it's just more of the same, taking money from the collective, socializing a cost, and socializing it out, spreading it out through the whole of the general population, and giving the gift of whatever it is they're buying, in this case an education, to a select few, those who actually took the loans out and got the education, and they're the ones that are getting the benefit, but they don't have to pay for it. It's all spread out through the collective, which is exactly what the Democrats want more and more and more and more of, so that we have free education, free. And they talk like it is free. That's stupid, but
yes. But the horror of this, really and truly, I mean, is even beyond what Tim is saying. The horror of this is that there are parents like my wife and I who send our kids to college, who paid for it out of our own labor. And now we have to pay taxes to pay for the education of other people's children. And most of these people probably were so damn irresponsible with the money that they borrowed. Now we have to pay for that. So here we have the government subsidizing irresponsibility. That's what's going on here. Oh, they're using the excuse, oh, COVID made life so difficult for these poor people. Oh my goodness gracious. Most of the people who do, I mean, even look at the requirements of the specifications of the handout. It's for people making $125,000 a year. That's how high it can go. Could you imagine that? $125,000 a year?
I'd like to make that.
Huh? Yes.
I'd like to make that.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, listen to the extent of this madness. So parents like us, my wife and I, paid for our children's education, and now we are going to be taxed to pay for the education of other people's children.
You know who got hurt? You know who got hurt in the COVID pandemic? The girls that clean my room here from Mexico. That most, some of them live. We're close to the border. Or the girls in. I was in Wichita, Kansas. There's a lot of Spanish-speaking ladies cleaning the rooms there. Yeah, but those are the kind of people that lost income. The waitresses and the hairstylists and the nail polish putter-oners. These.
Looks like.
Oh yes.
It looks like Tim has frozen. I tell you, it's got him so worked up. He is just frozen with rage. But no, I tell you, one of the crazy things about all this is that they're literally saying that a program where we have so many people with student debt now, and Democrats literally voted for this stuff when it first came out. They were pushers that government should be involved in handing out these guaranteed loans.
Yes.
And the idea was that would help people, give them opportunity. And now suddenly they're all crying that they have this unimaginable debt that they can't get out of. So it's either you have people who can't or won't pay back loans because of a government program.
Exactly.
And their idea is, let's just shovel more money into it without actually fixing the actual problem. So absolutely just nuts on so many levels. It's just beyond belief.
And what do you think the university is going to do? They're probably going to be the biggest beneficiary of this. They're not going to say, "Oh, this is this is okay." They're going to say, "No." They're gonna take look at that and probably raise the cost of education anyway. I mean, the cost of education, university education, is exceeding the rate of inflation, and that's been going on for years. Okay, now we're talking $100,000 and all kind of stuff to get a university education. That kind of money we're talking about. So when the government comes along and handing out these money to these kids, what do you think the university is going to do? Oh, this is a good time for us to raise our fees, raise our rates. And what are we paying for? We're paying for all these diversity counselors and all this damn nonsense that's going on in the universities now. This is a handout of the worst. This is a horror of the worst. God help us with these people. If we have 2 more years of these people and their madness, we're gonna bankrupt this country. We're gonna bankrupt this America. That's what's gonna happen.
Well, and the sad thing about this is that there is a liberty solution out there. It's not like we're just ranting against the system. Milton Friedman suggested years ago, look, tie the fate of the student to the college. So, and you could do that through a private loan system, or by simply, if the colleges want to make the loan directly, they can offer the education up front and collect on the back end after their students are successful. And this ties the fate of the student, because people aren't going to be able to, if they can't pay back the loan, who in the end is going to be a private entity at the end that's hanging out there and is going to be left stranded. So that either your loan institution is going to make sure that it's a good bet, whatever you want to study for higher education, or the institution is going to make sure that they aren't teaching worthless garbage, which is quite frankly a big part of the problem. You have all of these students who are taking courses that just aren't really, don't have a place in the marketplace, and they're just collecting ridiculous amounts of debt to do it with really no market
with no value in the marketplace.
Yes,
exactly. Like people getting degrees, and you're so right, Jason. People getting degrees in gender studies. What are you going to do with that?
Just confused.
In Asian studies, African American studies, Native American studies. What are you going to do with those sort of degrees? What are you going to do with it?
Yeah, I think you're just going to be spreading confusion more than the confusion you already have yourself, I guess, in these areas. But speaking of confusion, let's jump to our next story, and that's homelessness, which is apparently where most of these degrees are sending people. So, maybe we could jump into that. Can we pull that story up? So in LA, the big solution of all of these woke college graduates who were helping to pay their education off now apparently is that if you have a hotel and you have vacancies, they want to force you to take on homeless people in these hotels. And maybe Tim has special insight to this because he's in a hotel right now.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys can even hear me. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. We can hear you.
All right, because right now I lost total Wi-Fi. They just totally gone. I'm on my cell phone. I'm using my phone as a whatever it is, a hotspot. So I don't know how well I'm going to sound.
No, it's fine. Yeah.
And oh yeah, sure. Well, but if I was a homeless person, I wouldn't have to do a podcast where I needed reliable internet. I'll tell you what, I'm moving hotels to a different hotel here that we use. And it's just ridiculous. I'm tired of this. But anyway, but I'm not homeless. If I was, I'd probably appreciate having, who's going to, I guess, what are the hotels supposed to just do this gratis? They got they got to open an unused room and they're just supposed to give it up. Is that the whole idea for no compensation, or is the taxpayers of LA supposed to, again, doing it, socializing a cost, and then to narrow it down where the people receiving the benefit of the cost, in this case the homeless, just like the student debt thing, would get the benefit, and it's paid for by the collective. Is that what they plan on doing, or are they going to screw the hotel owners as well?
I think they're gonna give some compensation, but it's not market value compensation. If you take them in, it's gonna ruin businesses. There's no doubt about that.
Well, the bottom line is it won't be voluntary, and that's
It
the
won't be
real
voluntary.
test
That's
of a
exactly right.
marketplace.
Yes.
Is if its value is what both parties are willing to pay to come to an agreement upon, rather.
Right.
So,
But the thing is though, this is private property, okay? This is private property that you're gonna force people to take on guests. All right. So you really and truly are forcing the hotel to provide service to somebody that they have no desire to provide the service to. And there are people talking about, where they always go when there's an issue like that. Oh, this is Jim Crow segregation. You know where they always go? Where these left people always go? Is always some issue of race or Jim Crow or Jim Eagle, according to our president. But the fact of the matter is, this thing will not do anything for the homeless problem. It will not, okay? Because homelessness are caused by one of three things, okay? Either alcohol, drugs, or mental disease. That is what causes homelessness. There are very few people who go through temporary things where, they lost job, blah, 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 and they do end up on the street. But that's usually temporary. The permanent class of homelessness is drugs, alcohol, and mental disease. And this nonsense that they're trying to do, which you're trying to force upon the hotels in the Los Angeles County, this nonsense will do nothing for the homeless problem.
Yeah. Well, and maybe we could get the visual up again, because while this story is coming out, and this is something they're voting on right now, I guess, or they're going to vote on this year in LA, the other issue is that you've got, like in other places, this was from Las Vegas, where literally you have private solutions of building tiny homes for some of these people, so they just have a place to go. Right now, I mean, you look and they're on the sidewalks. They've got these horrific tarps and cardboard all over the place, and even tapping into power lines. And here you have some examples of people trying to put together these 50 square foot little units that people can at least have some shelter in and some privacy and some dignity. And the government then comes along and says, hey, it's not up to code. It needs to be at least 1,200 square feet. I mean, well, what do they want? It's like you get government in here and it's just, oh my God, it's not only do they create problems that cause a lot of these homeless issues, but then if a solution comes along, it steps on the solution as well. It's just absolutely crazy. You guys have any quick thoughts on this one?
Tim, go.
Well,
Tim, go ahead.
All right, if I'm going to go. Yeah, on the one hand, I'm kind of understanding about the code violations. I understand codes are there for standardization, and maybe there's a free market solution to standardizing housing. I'm not sure there is, but I'd be willing to listen to arguments that say they are. But in regards to this one particular thing, so we have selective enforcement. In other words, they can enforce the building codes on these little tent-like structures with a lockable door, but they won't enforce the code restrictions on a cardboard box set up with a tent next to a freezer. So that's select number one. They're not applying the law equally. They're not applying the law to the homeless that are creating their own shelters, only to a bunch of good Samaritans that are providing shelter for other people. And they're not good enough, apparently. So, while I gravitate toward the consistency of enforcement idea, and which would also apply to the cardboard box as well as the little tiny home. I am kind of gravitate toward that. On the other hand, I also kind of gravitate toward, if you're going to leave the cardboard box alone, then why don't you do the same thing for the tiny home? I just want to avoid the H word and stop the hypocrisy.
You, Tim, you. I think you're expecting the government to be rational, and that's an impossible task. Seriously.
Well, you consider too, it's probably a lot of government policy that caused a lot of this
Yes,
homelessness.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
for sure.
Yeah.
Including really, really strict codes, you know, I get it, and so I'd be willing to listen to more free market based arguments in favor of having some kind of consistency. When you buy a house, you want to make sure it doesn't burn to the ground in the middle of the night while you're sleeping, correct? Because
Yes.
because the electrical was not installed properly or safely, and how do you enforce that? Well, do you have some overlord that's going to inspect, some inspector that's going to come out and look at your wiring before you put the sheetrock up, and then after the sheetrock's up, you're going to have somebody inspect the sheetrock, and so on and so on and so forth. So yeah, I mean, you're right.
But Tim, I still
That's
think the marketplace could do a better job at developing codes, shall we say, than the
okay.
government can. I really believe that.
Well,
Okay.
let me tell you, I have just a little bit of inside on this because I've been involved with efforts with Underwriters Laboratories before on codes, and
Mm.
it's actually a quasi business government sort of relationship there, because a lot of these standards organizations, they started up around insurance, and then government then gets involved, and they work sort of hand in hand with government. So it's
Yes.
kind of that they offer the code that government works with them to establish, and then government forces everybody to use that code
Yeah.
essentially.
Well,
So and there's maybe there's some good effects, certainly, but it is kind of a weird relationship. It's not strictly government or strictly business. It's
no,
kind of
why?
a
It would
public-private
be so.
partnership.
You could so easily solve this problem, because if the builders of any sort of building had to have any kind of insurance, the insurance companies is certainly going to make sure those buildings are up to some market-based codes. I'm sure they will. They will not just be handing out insurance willy-nilly. They'll want to have some sort of standards in terms of in terms of putting up your buildings and all that kind of stuff and things like that. So
Mhm.
I don't see why there's not a simple free market solution to this issue of codes. I think we kind of off topic right now, but
Yeah.
uh,
Well, Tim, I don't know if you're able to or if you have access to it still, but I know you're good and triggered about your hotel. Maybe we could talk about good guys with guns.
I could rattle it off. We're at 28 minutes. The question is, can you hear me okay still?
yeah,
Yes.
All this time.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
All
change
right.
that. Get the
So
visual up too.
if we're ready to go, and cutting out on my side, I don't know how I am, but if I'm
You're
if I'm
good.
talking,
Yeah.
okay. This is July 8th of this year. After reviewing investigations, prosecutors declined to file criminal charges connected to the April 2nd fatal shooting of 36-year-old Kyle Nye Davis at a home in Homosassa, if I'm pronouncing that right, Homosassa, Florida. Brian Kefever, 30, was justified when he shot and killed Davis after Davis broke into Kefever's home, threatened Kefever's life, and struck him, according to a June 30th memorandum by Assistant State Attorney Peter Magrino. Kefever was able to grab his 9mm handgun during Davis's attack and fire 3 rounds, striking Davis twice in his chest and torso, before Citrus County Sheriff's Office deputies responding to the disturbance arrived to find Davis dead as a doornail. Oh, they didn't say that, but I did. Magrino, who is the homicide prosecutor over Citrus, Hernando, and Sumter counties, cited Florida law allowing the use of deadly force when a person is resisting any attempt to murder such person or to commit any felony upon him or even her, following the 14th Amendment, equal protection. Girls get the same amount of protection when they use a gun to gun down the assailant. Anyway, additionally, in his recitation of state law, Magrino said a homicide is excusable when committed by accident and misfortune in or upon sudden combat without any dangerous weapon being used. I don't know what that meant. That 9mm was dangerous and not done in a cruel and unusual manner. I guess you can't unusually kill the perpetrator. I don't know. Based upon the facts and law discussed above, the acts of Mr. Kefever were lawful and justified, Magrino wrote in his memo obtained Friday, July 8th. This determination has been discussed with the lead detective, and he is in agreement with this decision. So, what they found out was that Davis followed his attack from the night before against the woman that was breaking up with him. So, according to Magrino's memo, the wounded woman sought refuge at Kefever's home off of some place in that town. Davis kicked in a back door and lunged at Kefever, who has children with this same woman. Anyway, Davis weighed around 200 pounds and stood at 5 feet 11 inches tall during the incident, while Kefever weighed around 130 pounds and is 5 feet 8 inches tall. So apparently the woman went taller. Anyway, taller boyfriend. And more violent. Witnesses corroborated Kefever's statements to sheriff's office investigators and also shared how Davis took his then girlfriend's car keys and cell phone, blah, blah, blah. And then the woman was hospitalized later on for fractures to her ribs, nose, and jawbone, so she was beat up pretty bad. Anyway, Davis, at the time of his death, had alcohol, cocaine, and whatever this is, benzoylgonine, some amphetamine in his system. So, wow, even with that, stopped with 2 shots from a 9mm. Not bad. So, anyway, basically, Davis was a bad guy. He served 4 to 6 years from a previous thing against his wife. And so, very bad man, ends up dying because he's playing stupid games and he won a stupid prize.
And a good guy with a gun stopped him.
Yes. And by the
2
way,
shots.
this is the main reason we want to bring these to you, is because these stories are happening all the time out there, and it's we're seeing more and more. The law enforcement is telling us you're on your own, and we just want to let people know that, hey, there's a lot of people out there who are good guys with guns who actually are helping keeping us all safe to some degree.
When seconds matter, the police are minutes away. Remember.
Yeah. Well, that brings us up to just about the end of our show. Let's jump into our Knucklehead Noise Patrol real quick. And Jane, maybe I could get the visual on this. So this one is just an outlandish story. The Podcast Movement Conference. I didn't know there was such a thing. Who knows? Maybe we'll eventually get to that. But apparently they had a convention going in Dallas. And so one of the top podcasters in the country, Ben Shapiro of Daily Wire. And just as a disclaimer, I actually listen to Ben Shapiro, so I think he's generally got a good take on most things. But so maybe just a little bit of bias here, but I don't think any listener is gonna think that has anything to do with my take on the story here, because this is just outrageous. So apparently Ben Shapiro makes an appearance at this where they had a booth, okay, and he did not let them know he was coming. It was just sort of an added bonus, and a lot of the attendees were pretty happy about it. It looked like a lot of them in the video came up and asked to take pictures with him, and he was just there for a few minutes, so it wasn't like he was there for a ridiculous amount of time. And he shook hands with people, took pictures, and that triggered some of the wokesters there at the conference. And so the conference then put out a disclaimer after Ben Shapiro left. And what they said was, and this was August 25th. They said, "Hi, folks. We owe you an apology. Before sessions kick off for the day, yesterday afternoon, Ben Shapiro briefly visited the PM22 Expo area near the Daily Wire booth. Though he was not registered or expected," by the way, the Daily Wire booth is his booth. Okay, just so you know, these people apparently don't even understand that. But anyways, they said, though he was not registered or expected, we take full responsibility for the harm done by his presence. Those of you who called this unacceptable are right. In 9 wonderful years, growing and celebrating this medium, PM, that's podcast movement, has made mistakes. The pain caused by this one will always stick with us. Well, I don't know about the pain, but the shame will definitely stick with you.
Yeah,
because this is just crazy.
If this group of wokesters are our enemies, and I do believe they are, then we have a lot to be thankful for, because they do not live up to what they're going to need to have to be able to put us down as libertarians, because these people are dumb as rocks.
You know, when the snowflake disease is attacking even adults, and these people can't even seek treatment for their own disease, we got a real problem in our society. Imagine, these are adults, and the presence of Ben Shapiro triggered them. Oh my God! So what next? What next? Yeah, they're gonna hear some little word that song with the words freedom and liberty in it, and they're gonna get all triggered, and they're gonna need a psychiatrist, a coach to straighten the head out. God help us with these people. Oh.
Apparently, Leon, podcast movement assumed they were on a university campus and could just cancel anybody who didn't agree with them.
It must be. I tell you, this snowflake disease is really causing wreaking havoc in our society.
Which I think we'll have to leave it there. We've gone way over time, but thanks again, everybody, for joining us. And we've got a lot of good guests lined up through the end of the month and going into October too. So, and we've had a few good guests recently as well. You've seen Larry Sharp. We just had Dwayne Lester on, and David DeLugas, and one of our students, Gadai, as well. So this is really great and we're hoping that we're going to have a lot more regular guests for you as well. So keep tuning in, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the next one. Until then, stay free.
Yes, indeed. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.